Well, let me begin again with a drawing that I did yesterday already in the plenary session, but it is a key concept to get a hold of. Talk about the game of tennis, which is a game that is played across a net, and the net is held in tension by two posts. And if you don't have the two posts, you don't have a very scintillating game of tennis. Let me describe what these two posts mean. The first post is the post that we all have in our ministries. It is the post of giftedness or leadership. No church planting multiplication movement can get off the ground without the gift of leadership or giftedness. When you talk about Ephesians 4:12, the five-fold ministry that the Lord Jesus gives the church: apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, teachers. That is this one post. Most churches around the world are one-post churches. And if they have anything that augments the giftedness, it's programs. But it's I think that we need to think about the other post, and that's what we're going to do today. And that is reproducible systems. That are better than the people that use them. Reproducible systems is something like a discipline that if you put yourself under it, it will do good things for you. If you have the discipline of quiet time, the Lord is going to do good things in your own spiritual life because you have that discipline. If you go to the gym on a regular basis, you're doing something that is a discipline that will do good things to your body. So one of the keys to a reproducible system is to realize that it augments giftedness. The downside of giftedness is this: a gift is by nature something that you receive that you cannot give to another person. You cannot transfer the spiritual gift that you have to another person. If you have the gift of leadership, kaspas, which you do, well, you cannot transfer that to another person who doesn't have that gift. You could train him. You can give him some leadership skills, and he can understand some things, but he does not have that spiritual gift of leadership. It is not acquired by human engineering or human strategy. It's something given by God. The giftedness is limited by the direct influence of the gifted person. So how strong that giftedness is, the charisma of the person who has the gift, that is the limiting factor here. And in and of itself, it is a bottleneck. You will not grow a ministry, if you're growing a ministry around giftedness, beyond the scope of that person or that leadership team's giftedness. So it is limited in its power. Robert Quinn, in his book Deep Change, it's about 10 years old, 12 years old, you probably read it. He talks about the tyranny of competency. And what he means by that is competent people can build things, they can start things, they can get things moving, but because a ministry is built on their competency, it will be limited by the competency. And the competency in itself will become the tyranny of the ministry or the business, whatever, because it is so focused on that one person or that one gift mix. That's why we need to augment giftedness reproducible systems. Some of the characteristics of reproducible systems are they are simple. They are so simple that anyone in every church can do them on a regular basis. Um, they are reproductive, and they are not based on the gift of leadership. So let me give you a couple of examples of reproducible systems. Suppose you're in a church that is inward grown. You're very attractional. Only 10% of your people have the gift of evangelism, which is normal for an evangelical church. But very little outward focus. What can you do in terms of a reproducible system? Well, you could do this thing. You could get up in front of your people, and you could hold up, depending on your culture, if it's Germany, you could hold up a wine glass or a beer stein. If it's some other culture, it could be a water glass, it could be a cup of coffee. And you would say to your people this: we are going to try an experiment. This is the thing that gets people who are shy to buy into this. It's an experiment, okay? You say, I would like all of us this for the next month, once a week, to invite a non-Christian to a drink of their choice, and we will pay for it. They will not say no, because we will pay for it. And when you drink this drink with your non-Christian friends, do two things. You say, how are you doing? And whatever they answer, you follow up with this. You say, tell me more. They may say, I'm doing great. You say, tell me more. They may say, I don't know how I'm doing. You say, tell me more. They may say, I'm doing poorly. Tell me more. By saying, tell me more, you're telling them that you want to listen to them. Listening is the gift of love today. If you've listened authentically to a person, you have loved that person. So imagine this. A church of 50 members begins to invite their non-Christians, each one of them, to a drink of their choice. They say, how are you doing? And whatever comes back, they come back with, tell me more. Sometimes during that time, great need will be surfaced. And you can say to your people, if a great need is voiced by your non-Christian friend, then you pray up courage and you say, can I pray for you? And then you just pray out loud for that person and his need or her need. Imagine a church doing this every week. They would be outward living, not just outward focused. They would be living outside of the bounds of the church. And you could do this. Even the most depressive person in your church could do this. And those who are doing it don't need the gift of leadership to do it, or evangelism. You know the concept of pay it forward? You know the movie Pay It Forward, or I don't know what the title was, but yeah. Yeah.
You bless somebody.
Yes, right. Suppose you have the gift of service, okay? Or helps. My wife has the gift of help. She loves to help people. Suppose you had that gift and you saw a need in the life of another person. Could be a Christian, non-Christian, that you could meet. You went to that person and you said, you have a need? I can help you. I love to help. And you help that person. And then you say this, you know, you've been blessed. Can you think of another person that you know of that needs a similar blessing that we can bless him with? So they come up with another person, and then the two of you go and minister to that person's need. After that, you say to that person, can you think of another person that needs our help? And then the three of you, so it is helping people serve other people in a concrete way, and it builds on one another. It's also an illustration of a reproducible system. My challenge to you is try it. Try it. You know that you know this curve here in terms of anytime you try or suggest anything new in a church or in any kind of an organization, you'll get this kind of delineation. "10% of the people in your church will have the first idea. They're very creative, innovative kind of people. 40% say, we're not creative, but we'll follow you. We're the early adopters, okay? Another 40% say, we want to see that it's working first. You need to prove to us that this is a workable model, and after you prove to us that it's workable, then we will get on board." Another 10%, and sometimes it's even bigger than that, will say, "Not with us. Irregardless of what it is or how well it works, we will be stepping on the brakes." You need to know this. And in terms of doing something new like a reproducible system, you always run with those who want to run. So you start with the 50% in your church that is open to something new, to an experiment. And then after that month, you get them together and you say, okay, let's hear from one another. How did it go? What kinds of experiences did you have doing that? I remember in our church planting in the south of Germany, in the city of Kaiserslautern, we had moved out of the movie theater where we had planted the church into a large building that was the former restaurant for people who worked for the German railway system. And that was also still owned by the railway company. And in our building and around our building, there were still people who had apartments. They were still employed by the German railway system. And one of these people was a locomotive engineer by the name of Achim. He was like 2 meters tall. He was thin. He had he had shaved his head bald. He was always in black clothes. He had black leather boots on. And on the weekend, he would drink a case of beer himself. He was an amazing man. I've never seen anybody drink so much beer and still be able to converse with you. Amen to that. And he was a pagan.
The Lord was telling you to stop talking about beer, or
No. I think that was Martin Luther from heaven. You know, Martin Luther said, "As the gospel flows in Germany, so flows as the beer flows in Germany, so flows the gospel."
He also said that it's spiritual to drink beer.
Yes.
Because when you drink beer, you get sleepy, and when you sleep, you can't sin.
Anyway, so one day I went to our new facility that we had renovated, this former cafeteria, and Achim comes out, and I say to him, "Oh, Achim, how are you doing?" And he said to me, "Good." And I said to him, "Tell me more." And his head went down. I'll never forget this. His head went down, his shoulders went down, and he shook his head and he said, "I'm not doing well." I said, "Tell me, what's going on?" And he said, "Well, you know that I'm on sick leave. I had another accident with the locomotive. It's the third accident I've had. I crashed the train the third time. And next week I have an appointment with the doctor, and the doctor will decide whether or not I can go on Social Security or not. Stop working for the rest of my life." He's 38 years old. He's married. He has 2 small girls. And I could tell he was very anxious about this. So I said to him, "Achim, can I pray for you?" And he said, "Yes." He thought I was going into my worship center to pray for him. But I said, "Okay." I put my hand on his shoulder. I closed my eyes. I lifted up the other arm. And I prayed for him as well as I could, for his anxious heart, for the doctor who was to make this decision, for him to experience God and God's mercy for his wife, for his kids, for his future. 2 or 3 minutes out loud. And then when I said the Amen, I will never forget what happened. He took his head and he bored it into my shoulder. And he grabbed me with both arms and he pulled me to himself. And he began to weep like a baby. And he wouldn't let me go. Weeping, weeping, weeping. What had happened to him? He was touched by the triune God. The prayer had submerged him into the reality of the living God. He had not come to know him yet, but he had experienced him. And all because of such a simple thing as this. How are you doing? And tell me more. Do you know the story of George Whitefield and the Wesley brothers? They lived in parallel times and different cultures. George Whitefield was one of the most gifted evangelists of his day. Benjamin Franklin was a big fan of George Whitefield. Franklin once moved around the perimeter listening to Whitefield preach, and he estimated that 25,000 people could listen to Whitefield preach. Franklin said, Whitefield could move a person to tears of laughter or to tears of sorrow just by the way he pronounced the word Mesopotamia. I mean, this guy was gifted. He was gifted to no end. On his deathbed, knowing what had gone on in the UK through the Wesleyan movement, Whitefield said this. It sends just a cold shower down my back every time I think of this. Whitefield said this: all of my converts are like a rope of sand. But a rope of sand, ein Seil aus Sand. But Wesley has found something that has brought lasting fruit. And that was the class system, of course. Yeah. A reproducible system. Yes, the method. Yes. Yes. Which lasted over 100 years. Before the Wesleyan movement, you had towns and cities in England where children as young as 5 years old were alcoholics, where police were afraid to go into those cities and towns. After the Wesleyan revival, you had towns and cities that were so filled with righteous living that you didn't need police. It was a transformation of society. And it was through the accountability system of the class meetings. So this is my assignment for you now in your groups. Do this first, reflect first for 10 minutes on your own, prayerfully. Ask the Lord for new ideas in terms of reproducible systems. Something that has never been thought of. Ask God to give you a new thought on a new reproducible system. Give yourself 10 to 15 minutes to reflect on this prayerfully. Just do brainstorming. Whatever comes in your mind, write it down. And then after 15 minutes, take the best idea and share it with one another in the small group. Okay? Most of the strategies that we need to see a church planting multiplication movement generated have not yet been thought of. They may surface in this room today. Who knows?